Okay, so the purpose of me putting this up is so that you can check the answers against the ones that you did in class. I'd really like you guys to focus on a few things that I noticed in class. When you're reading these experimental designs, you've got to read them carefully because I know there were some students who misinterpreted the information. So experiment A, it says to maintain a healthy glow, more than 2.3 million teenagers visit tanning salons every year. Tanning salon owners and companies claim that the use of tanning beds provides a base tan that prevents clients from burning in the sun. Okay, so these are people who own tanning salons. So of course they're going to tell you that tanning is good. Then it goes on to say, however, and those are very critical words when you're reading. You have to pay attention to those transitional words because they're going to introduce something else, okay? So, however, pretty much tells you, well, we're going to say something opposite to that, okay? Give you an alternative to what the tanning bed companies say. It says, however, individuals who visit tanning salons have a 15% higher chance of developing melanoma during their lifetime, and that those visiting tanning beds before the age of 35 increase their risk by 75%. So here you have to understand that individuals who visit tanning salons, that's going to be the test group, okay? Because that's what they're testing. They're testing to see if people who go to tanning salons will have a higher risk of developing melanoma. So we also need to look at what the control group would be. Well, they would have to compare it against people who do not use tanning beds. So the control group would be people who don't use tanning beds. So no tanning beds is the control group, and the test group is those who use beds. Okay? And then to further that, you would have to take people who use tanning beds and compare them to people who use tanning beds before the age of 35. So that would be even another experiment. And you have to be able to understand that out of those 4 or 5 sentences, okay? So the independent variable, that's the one thing that they changed. Well, they changed the bed, okay? So they're saying, let's compare people who use the beds to people who don't use the bed. So use of a tanning bed is the independent variable. The dependent variable is the thing that they're measuring. What are they trying to find out? Well, they're trying to find out if there's a chance of developing melanoma. The testable question that could be investigated for the experiment, well, you could say something like, do people who use tanning beds develop melanoma at a higher percentage rate than people who don't use tanning beds? And then for the other one, you could say, do people who use tanning beds increase their risk of melanoma if they use them before the age of 35? And a hypothesis, you guys know how to do this kind of stuff. So if a patient uses a tanning bed, then their risk of developing melanoma will increase because tanning beds are known to bring on melanoma, or something to that effect. Okay, experiment B. It says 10 seeds were planted in each of 5 pots around the house that contained 500 grams of Peter's potting soil. The pots were given the following amounts of distilled water each day for 40 days. Okay, so as soon as you see a thing like that where there's a multiple pieces of information, here's what I want you to do, draw it out, okay? Drawing will help you organize your thoughts. So we've got 5 pots. And in each of the pots, there's 500 grams of Peter's potting soil. So that variable is controlled, okay? But in pot 1, there's 50 milliliters of water. In pot 2, there's 100 milliliters. In pot 3, 150. In pot 4, there's 200. And in pot 5, there's 250. Always draw it out. Okay? And it says, because pot 3 received the recommended amount of water, it's used as a control. So there's your control group. They tell you the control group right there. Okay? And then it says the height of each plant was measured at the end of the experiment. That's important because you have to know what is measured. Okay? So the problem or the question. Well, here's what we have to find out. They changed the different kinds of water, so that's the independent variable, what they changed. What they measured was the plant height. So your question is going to be, does giving varying amounts of water to plants change the rate of growth or change the growth that they will have? Independent variable is the one thing that you change. The one thing that we changed was the amount of water. The dependent variable is what we measured. What did we measure? We measured the plant height. Control variables, more than likely the size of the pot, the Peters potting soil, the amount of soil. Probably, if you were to control this, you would make sure that it's in the same environment, given the same amount of sunlight. All of the things that you can control should be controlled. The control group is pot 3 because they tell you. And the hypothesis is if I change the amount of water I give a plant, then it will change the growth, because plants who get water tend to grow more. Okay, and the data table is pretty simple. You just have to make a chart, and you just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then water given. And you can just put 50 mils, 100, 150, 200, 250. And you put a star by here because you know that's the control. And then the growth is what you would record. And you don't have to put the information in here because they're just asking you to come up with a chart that would represent that data. Okay? And usually put your units here, so water in milliliters and growth in centimeters. Okay?